our work is always the approach to not just look at theory and look at, flat pictures of how circularity could work, but actually apply it in the real world. And Ken's been doing this for a lot longer than I have. And we came together to create Real Circularity. So first, I want you to imagine a world without waste, where this became a new value for you and for the world. Imagine your business being a part of that and creating continuous benefits for both you and the world in just going about your work. We call this, in our sort of more geeky speak, processional benefits. So you go around your business, doing your business and being in your business, and create continuous benefits. And that can be, of course, monetary as well as benefits for the world. And we absolutely love Buckminster Fuller, use a lot of his quotes and a lot of his systemic work in our work. One of our favorite quotes is that we are called to be architects of the future and not its victims. Oops, it's coming in.
That's me. Sorry, Rachel. I'm just trying to join on my computer because I was on my phone, and quite frankly, it's tiny. So I'm just trying to.
Oh yeah, you can be able to see very much at there.
Yeah, I'm just moving, so sorry.
Are you in? There we are. Make sure you're in so you can see the screen. Okay. So we're going to do this slightly different to what we usually do. And for this one, I'm going to introduce Ken, and Ken's going to introduce me in our own unique ways. I would say that Ken is an all-round legend. He has been in this work and involved in this work for about 35 or 40 years. So almost as long.
I'm still only 21, Rachel.
Yeah, you're only 21. Almost as long as I have been alive. I would call him the Richard Attenborough of circularity. So that is Ken Alston. He worked with the original guys who worked on Cradle to Cradle, William Madonna and Michael Brunkhart, both in a bit larger macro business and in William Madonna's MVDC. So I am absolutely always honored to work and be by your side, Ken. And I'll let you do the other introduction.
Well, thanks, Rachel. I appreciate it. As Rachel said earlier, we met on a webinar together, and completely unknown to each other on someone else's webinar, and we hit it off together. Our personalities just seemed to mesh, and we started talking, and I obviously realized very quickly, as those of you who already know Sheila can't know, that she is one of the deepest thinkers in sustainability and circularity, as she said, applied in the real world, which was super important to me, because actions speak louder than words, although they're both important. And both in her domain and now increasingly outside her original domain of fashion, she's pushing the boundaries in the best way possible. So it's a pleasure to be working with you these last couple of years, Rachel, and long may it continue.
Long may it continue indeed. Thank you very much, Ken. Awesome. I think that's a nicer way of doing it. It's like you get like a lot more energy with that, right? So these are our three focuses in Real Circularity. At the moment, we have as we're going to showcase later on today, our Innovators Circle, which is focusing on brands and business. So finding ways of inspiring circularity inside of new businesses, new seed ideas, into businesses that already maybe have or want to want to apply this to their work. We also have our academy and alumni, which has been working for the past year and a half, maybe, Ken, right? Yeah. So this is working with professionals inside businesses or consultants, freelancers, designers, even very early seed business ideas, people who have something that's just starting or just building. They can come along to our academy, and it's attached year-long alumni and be a part of that. So that is much more of a course, but also continued access to the ongoing journey of applied circularity for their specialism.
And I think that alumni group, Rachel, is super important. It's become, you know, almost as important, if not more important, than the groundwork in the course itself, because we continue to evolve and talk and share, and so as a community of alumni, it's adding continuous value the whole time.
Absolutely, and that's what we want to do with our innovation area as well, is to make sure that this is a continuous thing, because this is a continued learning journey and a continued application as we go along. Our other focus is to do speaking and workshops, so that could be B2B stages, education spaces, but also inspire businesses and workshops and speaking gigs together inside of a business environment, so that larger businesses can try on what we're doing and potentially come into our larger consultancy with Circular Earth. We also are now running a summit every 6 months on the solstice, on the equinox. So the next one will be, which is unpopular day because it's a Saturday. So it will be December the 21st, but we are going towards that. And we have some really interesting people starting to come into that as well. And we'll touch on that later on. So we want to work with you to build commercially viable business that is capable of generating first circular business revenues, circa 100K plus, if not more. The more new circular businesses there are, the more models, the more systems that are out there. So today we're not just talking about product, we're talking about business systems as well, and new ways of generating. The more impact there can be made. So with the Innovator Circle, what we want to do is help those businesses to be able to generate faster together. Innovation apparently pays more than tick boxing. So if you are out there and are in a slightly larger business listening to this, there's actual research that has been done to show that if you are innovating, then you will actually create both bottom line and top line returns. This is the Harvard Business Review that speaks to this as well. And you found a piece of research as well recently, Ken, on the same thing.
I'll send it to you shortly so we can circulate it to people. There's some new research from one of the big consulting groups that talk to, I don't know, 130 or 40 businesses, small, medium, and large, about what they think going forward into 2025 about sustainability, its opportunities, its threats, and whether they think they can move forward or not. Exactly.
So the opportunities are there, and we don't have to just do our tick boxing exercise. We don't have to just focus on counting our CO2. This is a whole systems application. And innovation can be from the outside. So don't work too much on the inside of your business. We can actually work with you and start to apply all of the different spaces that we've been working with. So all of the connections that we have, the years of experience that Ken's had more so than me, but and also my deep domain knowledge, etc. We've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. By no means are we like, the experts of the century, right? Because, great wisdom is knowing that you'll never know everything, right? But this is why we continue to deepen our research and our work and our application.
And Joe, you said something earlier about, people asking you why do they need your help, right? It's because this reason that innovation comes from the outside. Time and time again, you'll find that companies are very blinkered because they're so focused on their existing goals or existing structures. They have to do that as part of their sustainability, just surviving, right? Mm-hmm. And it's very difficult for a business to step out of their own shadow and see themselves from outside. And the new innovation comes from outside. It rarely comes organically from within. It normally takes a mixture of internal and external.
But I think you're 100% right with that, Ken and Rachel. I think it's because Joe and I both didn't see the issues that we potentially had within the businesses we were working in at the time, because you're so embedded in that business and you're very much trying to get through the today list that I need to get done, that actually anything that's, you know, outside of that, I just can't fit that in. It's just a bit hard. It's just a bit difficult. All of those kind of things that you just don't have the time to do. But as soon as you step outside of those businesses, you go, oh my God, they were the important things that we weren't doing. We were literally just keeping stuff in the air.
So yeah, we'd be looking at those aspects. Again, moving away from the tick box attitude and into what we'd call a whole system mentality. We can get very geeky, but we also are pragmatic as well at the same time here. So there we go. We want to look at like continually modernizing and upgrading and evolving for that future. Looking at how we can update models and new systems. So we like to try that on with different businesses, finding ways of creating new systems, both for physical kind of take back things, but also business systems themselves, like, because it's going to have to be very different, especially in the circular space, than the business as usual space. And Ken, maybe you can speak to the triple bottom line and top line.
Yeah, you know, this is back to a mix of old definitions of sustainability that we touched on, Samantha, earlier, and also too much, what I think is too much rote regurgitation of old stuff without any thought. Be careful that you don't just fall into the patterns of repeating something that somebody said 40 years ago, because it sounded right then. It may or may not be right for today. You know, there's a lot of talk still about the triple bottom line. To me, that was okay when I was starting out, you know, as a young man working in this area. And people inside businesses were typically older white males in boardrooms, and they only thought about the money. They didn't think about environment and equity. All of the things that we almost take for granted today just weren't there at all. There wasn't a concept called the circular economy. There wasn't even a concept called sustainability, right? And think of the time before then, and it's within my generation, so it's not that long ago. And if that's all you're still regurgitating when you're explaining to people, you are so far out of date, you shouldn't be saying what you're saying. And so, have you ever heard anybody talk about the triple top line? You've probably heard them talk about the triple bottom line, that, you know, okay, if you're going to have financial profits, you also need to have a bottom line for environmental and for social things. But where's the discussion about how do you get to the bottom line? Even financially, if you're teaching economy 101, you've got to have a top line before you can have a bottom line. You've got to have sales, you've got to have revenue, take away your expenses before you end up with a bottom line. So what's the triple top line for all of the sustainability things? And Rachel's got a little line in there that's, you know, we could talk on for a week and still not be finished, about 3 dimensions.
Yes.
For me, you know, think of all the images you know about sustainability. It's economy, environment, equity, it's people, planet, profit. It's usually either a triangle or 3 overlapping Venn diagram circles. These are so outdated. To me, they're ridiculous. They were okay for 40 years ago when you knew nothing. They're still okay if you know nothing. It's a way to introduce you from 0 to level 1. But for me, sustainability is 3-dimensional. And that's a whole new masterclass just right there in that word 3-dimensional there. You might just be able to see over my shoulder. Maybe you can't because of my name. But I have a whole 3-dimensional model of sustainability, which would blow your mind, and we don't have time to geek out on it today.
That's a whole other session, Ken. We could go on.
Yeah, that's a whole extra session that we will get into with the clients, because that's the only way I think now. I can't think in 2 dimensions. I can't think in those old flat 2-dimensional images. And once you see 3-dimensionally what we're talking about, and you change from the old 3 E's or the 3 P's, you'll never think the same way again. So there's a lot more to this than you see when you just see the casual stuff that's posted on LinkedIn, which we could have a rant about that too someday.
100%. And even changing it is a three-dimensional exercise. It's seeing how things interlock, moving out of these silos, looking at the operating systems, the finance systems, the actual systems of moving things around into the next space, into the next evolution. How's that going to work? How can we create new revenue streams continually? It takes a lot of business development. It takes a lot of connection and collaboration over different spaces. So, and this doesn't matter whether you're a tiny business or whether you're a huge business. These kind of things still apply.
Well, you just have to meet people where they are, right? When you're doing your consulting. And if someone's an absolute startup that just has someone with a great idea in their head, you've got to approach them from a different place than someone that already has 10 brands and 500 SKUs, right? So it's horses for courses. It's where are you? What can we change? When should we change it? Yep. It really has to be structured very carefully.
100%.
Yeah, and as Rachel said, all of our work, the reason it's called Real Circularity is we want to practice in the real world. It's not just theory. I mean, my wonderful three-dimensional triangles start as a thought exercise, right? But then they become real through practice.
Exactly. So we want to encourage a deeper way of thinking and applying in your business. So I want you to imagine what your Eden of business would be, and think about how you could work with us to apply that. Our first section that we're going to go through, there's probably about 5 or 6 sections here on things, is going to be about the product and business and systems innovation. So Ken could go on about many of the different projects that he's done in the big macro space for sure, and Steelcase is one of them, which is in the book, one of the first design from deconstruction circular office chairs, right? And it's fascinating what you had to do with that, Ken.
Well, most companies, when you're doing your marketing, right, you think about you're moving away from pain or towards pleasure. Those are the two fundamental directions you can take. The same is true of businesses. Why do they come to this agenda? Either they're moving away from pain, some problem that's appeared, or they're moving towards pleasure. They've got a better story to tell, right? So it's the same sort of approach. In this case, the CEO of Steelcase, and I'm talking about 20 years ago now, when this original work first started, wanted a head twisting for his executive committee. It's like, I can see into the future as CEO, and I can see that sustainability is a thing that's appearing on the horizon, but I've no idea how it impacts my business. I have no idea where we stand. Our executives are like this, right? They're blinkered. They're so focused on what they're doing, they can't see what's coming at them. And so we did a major exercise in the end that was a very, very large sum of money. But it started with one workshop and one speech, which is one of the reasons Rachel said at the beginning, we have workshops and speeches in our portfolio, because that's one of the ways you can start something small that can become big. And what we realized when we went through the potential future, and we almost envisioned what Rachel was saying about what's your Eden, there was a sudden realization that their old view of what sustainability was way out of date. They didn't even really grasp the most smallest part of it. And when we looked at their office chairs, for example, we took one of their best-selling lines and we took it into their engineering shop, where they have every tool imaginable that you could think about, to wrenches and screwdrivers and I don't know, whatever else. And they couldn't take apart one of their own chairs, even in their engineering workshop with all the tools available. It's like, oh my goodness, how could there even be a concept of circular economy or circularity when we can't even take it apart and separate the pieces into different streams of materials? And so we went through a process of completely redesigning one of their, well, actually it was a new chair that they were about to design. And we said, hey, don't start the design until you've gone through this training. And so we did workshops as part of the initiation of a new design team. And this is the chair they came up with, and it's a chair that could be taken apart in 6 to 8 minutes with normal household tools. that you find in any regular kitchen. So, you know, this is just one example of a completely missing piece of the puzzle. You know, Rachel and I were talking about this slide earlier today. I mean, but you could have 20 other conversations about other aspects of circularity just out of this. All you've done is one thing. You've been able now to be able to take your chair apart when it's no longer usable. What you make it from, are any of these pieces sustainable in themselves? Are they designed to circulate, or are they just whatever they are, right? There's a whole, what Rachel and I call everything that's in everything that's in everything, right? You have to understand all your materials down to 100 parts per million. What makes those pieces orange? What makes the steel black? I mean, there are 1,000 questions that come just from this one image, but it was a fundamental change in mindset that got them to think about the fact that they couldn't even take their own chairs apart. They were designed for assembly, not disassembly.
Yeah, it's a huge mind shift, isn't it? And yeah, my part of in it has been in the opposite end, not the large macro businesses, but in how we can scale this, sometimes with hardly anything at all. What you can use with the collaboration systems, with finding unique places that are doing really interesting things, how to put them together and innovate together. So I've been incubating that in the incubator for 2 or 3 years now, maybe 4 years, I think it is. It's slow going, but actually there are things you can do straight away with things that exist already if you know that they exist. So we want to focus also on making obviously an innovative product or system, creating something truly circular in the product or systems wise is a massive feat. However, we've seen this power of the connection, of collaboration, of working as agile micro businesses to create something larger than oneself. And we want to focus also on iteration. So this is not something, if you've got like 100 SKUs or, you know, even 20 SKUs, okay, we're not going to do them all in one go. They might have things in kind that actually would make it you know, realistic to innovate more. But we want to focus on this continual iteration. Let's agilely create one thing, move into the next thing. Or it could be just a one product business or a materials business that you can then start to think about how you can either iterate that product and iterate the systems and the connections. So we can show you how to create that for minimal cost and risk, and create with continuous improvement. So it can take years or even decades to understand some of the nuances of creating in this space, let alone creating something that people actually want and need. So we want to add in our innovation excellence, reduce your fail rate, realize this good idea, enhance and perfect in this iterative process, and look at any incomplete information along the way. And we'll discuss the everything that's in everything that's in everything. I've added an extra sort of bit for that part. Next part is our business innovation, looking at new economic growth measures, and I put growth in inverted commas because you know, exponential growth in the old linear system is not what we're looking at here. We're looking at how we can create continual different multiple revenues based on your business and its interaction with other businesses and the next evolution of that product or service. Looking at the business operation systems and frameworks or your metrics. So some people have come to us to ask about how to place metrics into businesses. So yeah, again, looking at your triple top line, working on your frameworks and business systems and how you can remodel them in the real circularity way. And then, as I said earlier on, creating this continuous value with these different circular models and systems. So value innovation, thinking about the evolution revenues, simple ownership models, which have been going around for a while in terms of product as a service. So many only think about the actual circular product, and they do not imagine the operating systems or the systems thinking of the business. They don't think that maybe that needs to be different to the space we're in. And I was working a new economic guy. So, okay, we're in this economic system at the moment. And okay, how can we iterate with how it is and start to try on creative different ways of creating a business in this economy towards the regenerative one that I know is possible. So a lot of my work is in the regenerative space.
And I said earlier about how the old, people, planet, profit, triple top line that, or triple bottom line that people talk about is really a little bit old hat now. If you think about it, there is no system in any of those three words that I just said. It's just three filing cabinet drawers, one called environment, one called equity, one called economy. There's no flow. You can draw your little circles in your Venn diagram or your triangle. There is no actual flow. There is no actual system. So how can you use that as a model when there isn't even a system? There isn't even a flow, right? It's just saying, hey, here are three things you've got to pay attention to. And that's not enough. And that's why Rachel's got in there. What's the operating system? How are you thinking systemically? Because without that, you're not going to move very far.
All good. So yeah, that's the business innovation side of things, looking at finance models, revenue streams, operating systems, business systems, and then the new systems and new economics that we're going to have to look at and have to face, which is what we call the elephant in the room. The realization that we're going to have to reduce overproduction and have these products and services work more for us as an economic system as it is right now. But we have to change that to make that work and realize it. And then what we're going to do with our Innovators Circle as well is add in connections and collaborations. We'll do a real collaboration masterclass. Although, however, I've always said to Simon, you can't teach collaboration. It is something that you have to experience, right? And we are, Ken, myself and Simon, are testament to this work. Real Circularity is a collaboration itself. We came together, saw the skills that could work, and brought this work to the table. And I've done this in other areas as well, of co-creating brands, of creating win-wins in marketing, for instance, simple things that you might come together for, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, or just for a trade show or whatever, that kind of thing. Very simple ones, right through to complex, how you structure a collaborative brand, how you share the revenue streams, how you work with that sort of thing, but also how you might sort of bring different players together, bring an innovation from somewhere else and bring it into a new space. So for instance, I worked with Contemporary Hempery, and we had in our ecosystem someone who was working with agro waste. That agro waste guy had created a whole system for something called degumming, which is a specific process in the hemp thing, but also the same sort of thing in his agro waste. He'd created this blueprint for a machine, and we had, well, how can we put that together with someone else, and how can we get that funded? Okay, I'll go out and speak to some brands and people who were interested, and they actually wanted to sponsor this innovation, right? Like, I'd actually got them to say yes, so these things, and they didn't even want to create like a whole run, they just wanted to be there for the kudos points, right? So it's about these sort of how you architect these situations. Joint ventures, so it might be sort of finding other people outside in a different space and bringing it together, finding interesting complementary products that can enhance your business and ideas. My good peer in law does this a lot and has done this a lot in the energy space. And obviously the energy space is now more further forward than our product or fashion space. So that is quite normal to create sort of these joint ventures and collaborations and find out, okay, could we make something like much better bringing these people together? We also will do inner circle introductions and business development. So a lot of people do come to me and say, could you introduce me to these people or those people? I have to live, frankly, you know, I've got to feed my kids at the moment, probably burnt fish fingers and chips, but you know, there you go. Yeah, and so why? This is not always what you know, though that's useful. It's very much who you know, and more importantly, their perception of you. So anyone out there who is starting out in this space, and I know a lot of people who started up in the fashion space who have not been from the fashion space at all. Sometimes it's probably better that they don't know what they're getting themselves into, you know, but actually, they can't always go to certain factories or certain innovators or whatever because they are not seen in the space yet, right? So we have a connected network of players, retailers, brands, practitioners, consultants, investors, and other innovators to link with you. And then imagine maybe linking out together as a collaborative innovator circle to show these innovations to the world as they are birthed. And then this is our favorite part as well. And a lot of the favorite part from the Academy is the transparency part, right? So what we call everything that's in everything that's in everything. And we pride ourselves in knowing what's under the bonnet inside of a business, any business that we're working with. We want to go deep dive into all of the aspects to showcase that brand and innovation. Find the bare bones. And this can be aside from certification. Certification's fine. It's a grey scale. And I like to look beyond that. Okay, what's really going on in every single aspect of that sometimes very matted supply chain, right? It might be linking also with the DPPs. We are trialing some of these different ones at the moment, and innovating as well with one of them about how you include the customer journey in that DPP. I think that's a nice to have, and it's something that can showcase the transparency easily to the customer. So yeah. So why? To know the right questions, the nuances. Ken's background is in chemicals, right? So he was a chemist, and this, you know, this is something that, you know, he can take even more granular. How many supply chain levels did you go down into? 15, was it?
Oh, yeah, I went 15 or 16 levels just on those chairs alone that we were talking about. Yeah.
And sometimes you get to the end and they're like so far removed, they're like, I don't want to give you any information, you know, things like that.
Well, there is. I mean, that's back to competition again, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you my magic mix for how to make that orange on that fabric.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not giving away that. That's our company trade secret. So we have to have a way to have that same transparency and integrity down the supply chain that says, look, I need to know that because my client who's way up the supply chain needs to know. But I won't tell the supplier what you're telling me. I'll just give him the answer as to whether your ingredients, you know, are good, bad, or indifferent, right? I'm not going to give your trade secrets away, even if that means I have to sign my life away with a non-disclosure agreement, so that at least I can get your data to look at.
Yeah.
So there are ways and means of doing this, but it's complicated, and that's one of the reasons why certification, particularly things like the Cradle certification, which I helped put together, is very complicated and expensive.
Yeah.
Because it is a deep dive. It's a super deep dive.
But there are ways
that most people have never done before.
100%. And there are ways that you can investigate this yourself. Knowing the right questions to ask, particularly in the domain, is one of those things. And we do see the barrier to access with things like Cradle to Cradle. It's really brilliant, absolutely brilliant thing that you created, Ken. But like a lot of businesses that come to me and said, this is not economically possible for me to do, right? Especially
particularly if you have a lot of SKUs, right? If you've got to certify every other year, every single SKU, and you're innovating and changing those SKUs in between, you know, those 2-year certification periods, it's like a forever process that's costing you money. And at some point you have to decide how much value you're getting from it. there can be a lot of PR value initially, but can you continue it is an open question.
Yeah. So we'll help you look at transparency. And then there is our media links, right? Because, you know, when we're building a business, and I found out the hard way, you know, that coming out of working for someone else and then working for myself were very different ball games. And the work that actually Simon has coached me in has been amazing for my side of this business, and we've positioned ourselves over the time with these tools, right? So we've now got this positioning in the market. We are official nominators of the Earthshot Prize, and we find it very difficult to be able to do any nominations outside of any business that we haven't been really focused on working with, right, Ken? Because we have to see that
that's part of our integrity, right? We're not just going to put a rubber stamp on something and say, oh yeah, we're a nominator, so we'll just put you up there. No, we need to know something about you and who you are, what you're trying to do, and how you're doing it.
Yeah, because as a nominator, you know, the Earthshot Prize do not give you money as a nominator. It's more of a, you have been chosen as people of integrity who can showcase these different ideas, right? And we want to be able to do as much as possible, but yeah, we can only do it with people who we're working more directly with. So that's one of the things that we're going to showcase, sort of these kind of endorsements. Potential investment, so grow your MVP with us, link up to potential investor or collaborator links, as we spoke about earlier on, as again, endorsement of the iteration itself, again, TBC to product stroke system or uniqueness. Featured graphic and showcase. A lot of people have asked us to affiliate ourselves with their web pages, etc. Again, it's a very similar thing to the Earthshot, as we need to know under the bonnet. Yeah, we obviously are doing the summit every 6 months, so again, that could be a showcase in there. We are iterating the book again at the end of 2025 and want to add brand and iteration showcases inside of that book as well, so that can be a part of that. So why, you know, being seen in the space and creating positioning, I found is paramount, is most important, and those things are the way the world works. I wish it didn't work that well. I wish it worked, you know, that you could get a nice badge and £1 million just for being wonderful, but this is the way it is. So we wanted to put this pragmatic links as a part of what we're going to do in the Innovators Circle.
And for brands, communication is so important. You talked earlier, Joe, I think, about and Joanna, about you know, social media and how brands not being sure and hesitant about how they're going to promote themselves, obviously for fear of greenwashing or whatever, some other backlash. This is such an important part that most people don't have any clue about. I came across it early in my career when the big company that I worked with, when I was a marketing manager for a brand, and I launched one of the first green position brands in the UK back when I was like yay high. And you know that typically the bigger brands will work with an ad agency, and typically you pass things over and the creative comes back. These people don't have a clue about sustainability and the circular economy. And it's no wonder at all to me that we get so much greenwashing, because the people who are creating the creative haven't a clue what they're talking about, and they just automatically go into greenwashing mode because that's all they know. And so there is a whole stream of this that we haven't really talked about, which is how do you communicate this stuff in a way that's meaningful and humble and honest? It's a skill. Yeah.
Exactly. And, you know, that's why our summit is the summit in June, particularly, which is our first one that we did, was not a pay to play. There was no sponsors. We did it ourselves with sweat and, you know, with Ken's
12-hour live broadcast. Yeah.
12-hour live broadcast, and with Ken's amazing links of people who he taught or he'd worked with. How many years before? 30, 40 years? 30.
Blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Yeah, like so we had the head of circularity at Google speak, which was amazing, and Trisha Carey from Renewcell,
yeah,
which were really great highlights. And we've got some more bigger, I wouldn't want to say.
I've got someone, I won't name his name, but I've got someone coming in December who is a real leader in his space, and it's in the regenerative space. And he's asked me if I will be a real tough journalistic interviewer of him, because he finds that most of the people who want to talk to him are very surface deep and don't really want to challenge him. And so that's going to be an interesting one for me to be the investigative journalist pushing this guy to the limit, hopefully.
Love it. Well, this is what we like. We want to have integrity on what we're doing, and showcase the people that we're obviously working with, the people who you worked with before, Ken, and for this to be real, right? Like there's no BS here, right? So this is not like some kind of weird award that has been created to generate, come along to our event and pay £250 or something, that kind of thing. So yeah, this is what we'll commit to. We'll do a virtual, because obviously Ken is in the US and I'm here, and everyone's busy. So, actually virtual is probably a good thing. You can touch more people in more places, so we've always found. Weekly group meetings at 60 minutes, which we recorded and available in the portal. This is a yearly commitment, so this is 12 months. We value that estimated about £5,000. We will do virtual intensive implementation with each person one-to-one every quarter. Again, 90 minutes, valued at, again, at £1,000. We will offer a VIP support line, which is text-based, voice notes, during office hours, so that you can ask questions, work with us, send a voice note, whatever. We will obviously do the introductions and links. These things, these things are things we've grown over time, so they're priceless. Again, the showcase is IRL virtual, and those collaborations that we can bring together. The extras, link to our book, Academy Foundations course with library. So our library is where we place in all of our book recommendations, the white papers that we suggested, the PhD papers that we're linked to out there. Summit VIP plus 5 VIP passes for your network. And then, yeah, so we'll be having, that's what we will commit to. We want you to save time, save stress, money, and innovate and create a great business. So that's the menu there. We need our founding 20 Circle Pioneers to start this. For these 20, we will not be asking for equity or stakeholder interests for the first pioneers. As we grow it in year 2, it's something that we might ask for, because then we'll have more innovators and showcases of what we've done with the Innovators Circle. This is for the initial opening work. We just simply want to show that this can be done. We need your commitment, your idea and business to come and start with us in the Innovators Circle. Of course, if it's for you, awesome. If it's not, but you know someone in your network that this would be perfect for, we want you to share this with your peers and your clients, and have them view the video here that I will cut. So this program is a 12-month program, and it will be £5,000 to join that program, but we do have to do this as a group to make that price work. So there we go. We will look at starting this in 30 days time, and over the next 30 days, I'll be doing some meetings, invitations, Yeah, people can come and speak to us one-to-one.